fellow who hired Hector many years ago. When Hector came in for a job interview, I always asked applicants what their long-range goal was. And when I asked Hector, he didn't hesitate for a second. He said, "Oh, I'm going to work for Newsweek." And I thought, well, now here's a guy that has ambition. And so we hired him. And it turned out to be probably the smartest move I made during my long journalism career. Hector was a fierce reporter, an intrepid investigative reporter, and I would say that he became probably one of the best investigative reporters in the entire country.
I don't think there's ever been anybody who loved newspapering more than Hector San Miguel did. If anybody was ever born to do what he did, it was Hector.
What Hector San Miguel brought to the table was his just love of investigative journalism to keep both government and business honest, and the role was very well done by him.
Well, I have great memories of Hector. Affectionately, I called him Heck when he would call. I'd say, "Hey Heck, how are you doing?" But he always called and was very fair and impartial in asking me questions. What I always remember though is he already knew all the answers because he'd done all the research.
The thing that I appreciated the most about Hector was that he was fair, he was accurate, and he was a man of his word. If you told Hector that something was off the record, then it was off the record. But if you gave him information for a story, he took it, he ran with it, and he went the extra mile to get it right.
There's a difference between investigative reporting and reporting. And Hector defined investigative reporting. And the reason why is all those public information requests he made through FOIA or through open records laws, the way he challenged what an open meeting was, sunshine laws, whether it was your taxpayer dollars or your access as a citizen or your right to know, he was always on the public side with that, and everybody was the better for it.
You know, I think one of the main reasons that we honor Hector all these years after his death is that he really was the prime example of what a reporter should be. When you saw a Hector San Miguel byline, you knew that every fact had been checked and triple checked. You knew that every source had been called, and probably 2 or 3 sources had been called. And you had a sense of comfort that the facts on the front page, and his stories usually were on the front page above the fold, and he was very proud of that, were solid facts and good reporting, and that he had put perspective behind the story as well. But we do this award each year because we want to continue to spotlight that that is what we're looking for, that that is what, as citizens, really we're demanding of the press. We want the local reporters today to strive for the type of excellence that he brought every day and to carry that forward in their work despite the immense demands of today's electronic world, to do it faster, quicker, and a little bit more glamorous, to really focus on that solid old school journalism.
To Hector, it was all about reporting the truth and the facts, not about sensationalism or getting it half right. He wanted it 100% right.
But Hector did all this without resorting to this cartoon stereotype of the hard-bitten journalist with the trench coat who was miserable or anything like that. He did everything with energy and joy, no matter what the situation was. Rita was probably the biggest story of our time in a lot of ways. And at the same time he was out there to cover the information from that storm, he realized out on the lakefront that the alligator pen had been unattended, so those gators had never been fed. So Hector, with his notebook literally in one hand, goes out to the side of the lake and picks up dead fish and carries the dead fish to feed the gators, then goes on to cover the rest of the aftermath of the storm.
I'm going to have those people eating my dust. That was his favorite saying. Those who knew Hector heard him say that, I'm sure, many times.
Hector loved to get the scoop. He had sources all over town. He never gave up his sources. He loved to beat the local television news station for the scoop. He'd watch the 6 o'clock or 10 o'clock news on the TV in the newsroom, and the longer the news went on, when he sensed that he had the scoop, he would cackle. He'd say, "They are eating our dust."
He came into work every day just as enthused he could be. He used old-time phrases like scoop. He loved that word. But I got the scoop. I got the scoop. But you know, if you think about him as an investigative journalist, which is basically mainly what he did at the American Press, the thing that amazed me most, it still flabbergasts me. When we would be out and about the town, there would be somebody we would run into who a month earlier he had written some scathing story about, and they would talk just as amicably as could be. And I think that what that tells you is he never got anything wrong. Even the people who were maybe the targets of his investigation, they respected him.
He was very fair in my regard. I think he was fair to all elected officials. He always made sure he got your side of the story, even if you didn't agree with him as to how he wrote the story, and that's what we call free press.
Actually, I got to know Hector through my wife, Nancy. Nancy was the public figure in our family when I first moved back to Lake Charles. She went to work for Channel 7, and she got to be good friends with Teresa. They started about the same time. And so I got to know Hector through Teresa, and we'd see him socially, different events and different things around town, and I never really picked up on all Hector did until I got a little more involved in the political world. And one of the things that I can remember as the years went by is that I'd be interviewed by Teresa on a story or Hector, depending on which one first. And no matter which one it was, they all said the same thing. They both said, I should say, the same thing when they left. And that was, don't tell Teresa, don't tell Hector. They always had that sort of that healthy respect for the job that they did.
Now, I can't not mention Hector without mentioning Teresa, because I always enjoyed watching the two of them as who was going to scoop the story and who was going to be first, Teresa or Heck. And I think that's really a special memory because they were a special couple.
Not only was he a great reporter, but he was a great person and a great friend. We miss him very much.
Hector was a great friend of mine, and I love the fella. A lot of other people felt the same way about him. He enriched all those lives that he touched. He certainly enriched mine, and I will continue to miss the guy as long as I live.
He knew the power of the newspaper in the community for keeping folks honest. I loved working with him, and I drew inspiration from him and continue to. Rest in peace, my brother.
But I think it's really great the way that we've honored him and the way that his legacy continues in this program of honoring him and honoring those who are choosing to follow the same profession and to follow in his footsteps.
I think the thing that I miss the most about him personally was just his sheer excitement for life, for his family, and for the job that he did every day. Being a reporter is not easy, it's not glamorous, you don't get paid a lot of money, the hours are long, but you would think that he was a rock star. He treated it that was his job, like a rock star every day, and he had that level of excitement, and certainly he carried that with him everywhere he went, and he was just such a joyful person to be around, and we miss him so much every single day, and it's the reason we gather here every year to honor him and honor the work that he did.